everyone and welcome back. In today's video we are going to be creating this card that was inspired by this card that was designed by team member Erica, and we're going to be doing some stacked sentiments. The new Die-namics is a really bold font that works really well for this technique, so we're going to be using this in creating a row of the dad word down the card front, and then we're also going to stack those die cut words on top of one another to give this card some dimension. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some pencil lines and marks so I know exactly where I want to position the dad die to do the die cutting. Now you don't have to be this precise if you want to just kind of freehand where you put it, but I am going to measure in 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and then I'm also going to measure 1/2 inch, 1 3/4 inches, and 3 inches from the bottom of that panel. And then to make it even easier, I'm going to draw the lines right across where I put those little tick marks. And that's going to give me the side line as well as the bottom line to perfectly line up this dad die so that it's in the exact same position each time I die cut it. So once I have the lines drawn on there, I'm just going to take this to my die cutting machine and die cut those 3 dad words. You do want to make sure that your card is open when you're die cutting the words, or you will cut through the back as well as the front. So just make sure it's completely open and then run that through 3 times. And because I had those pencil lines, I have everything perfectly lined up and each of the dad words is stacked perfectly on top of one another. And then before I move on to the rest of the card, I just want to make sure that I remove all of those pencil lines. So I'm just using my eraser there and quickly taking all of those lines off of that front panel before we start to assemble the card. So the first layer of the words is actually going to be some die cut inlay, but I need something to adhere the letters to. So I have a panel of white cardstock that I have cut slightly smaller than the card front. And now I'm adding a very generous amount of adhesive to the front of this panel. I'm making sure that I have that adhesive completely behind all 3 of the dad words, and then I'm also adding some around the outside edge as well, and I'm going to adhere this onto the inside of the card. And now when I flip that back over, you can see that I have adhesive in all of those openings, which is going to allow me to quickly and easily add all of the letters back in there. So I have the dad word die cut from various colors of cardstock. I have Summer Splash, Limelight, and Tropical Teal, and I've die cut the dad word 3 times from each of these colors. We're going to be using the colored die cut pieces to form our stack sentiment. So I'm going to start first with the Tropical Teal. I'm going to add the letters into the openings first, and then once I have the letters in, I'm going to take the white interior pieces from that original die cut part that we did, and I'm going to add those into the center area. I'm going to do this for all 3 of the dad words, changing the color as I work my way up, and then once I have all 3 of them completely filled, we now have a completely 1-layer panel. Now this looks great on its own, but we want to add some dimension. So I find that the easiest way to add the additional sets of letters is just to use some liquid glue. And you don't want to use too much because it will ooze out, so just use a tiny amount but enough to hold the letters in place. And then I just quickly add the letters over top, lining them up on top of one another. And the large size of these letters really makes this quick and easy to do, and it doesn't really take that long. So I'm going to do 3 layers on each one. So I have the initial layer that we added in the die cut inlay, and then I added 2 additional layers on top. And now you can see I have all of the layers added, and I have this really great dimension on these die cut words. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the very top layer of these dad sentiments, and this is probably my favorite part of this card. I love this idea that Erica came up with. What we're doing is we're die cutting the cross-stitch rectangle die from a piece of white cardstock. And then I'm going to take this to my die cutting machine and die cut that dad word 3 more times right from the center area of that panel so we get that tiny hole detail. And what that's going to do is give us that polka dot design, but all of those holes are open, so you're going to be able to see the color of cardstock peek through those openings. Now because of those open holes, we are going to adhere these ones a little bit differently. For this one here, I'm using a chisel tip glue pen, which just kind of allows me to lay a light layer of glue onto the back of those letters. And then I can very quickly and easily place them on top of the existing word and press them into place. If you do use liquid adhesive, I would recommend using it on the backs of the letters and kind of rubbing it in with your finger before adding it to the die cut word, just because you don't want any of that glue to kind of ooze through the little hole openings on the letter. So I'm just repeating this same process on the second and third dad as well. And you can see that we get that great light blue color kind of peeking through the center, and then we have the lime color at the very top. And then once we have them all adhered there, you can see the great dimension that we have with all of these stacked letters, and we get the great color kind of showing through the sides of the letters as well as the polka dot detail on top. So now we're really going to bring this card to life, and we're going to do some stamped sentiments on some strips of cardstock. And all of these strips of cardstock completely match the letters that we've die cut. So I've used the same Tropical Teal, Summer Splash, and Limelight. And we're going to stamp the sentiments from the All About Dad stamp set onto these strips of cardstock. And I'm going to be using Versamark ink to do the stamping, and then I'm going to cover them all with white embossing powder. I'll heat set all 3 of them off camera, and then I'm going to use my paper trimmer and trim all of these down. Now I'm keeping them roughly the size of the sentiment that's stamped on them, so each of them is going to be a different size. We're going to have a small, a medium, and a large. And I'm going to layer them like that on the card. So we have the longest one there on the bottom. I'm going to put the medium one in the center and then the very small one at the top. And I'm making sure that I have all of the sentiments stamped on the same color of cardstock that I used on the Dad die cut so that everything matches perfectly. So once I get this last one on here, the last thing I'm going to do on this card is add a few enamel dots. Now on Erica's version, she used some matte dots, which I love the look of, but I didn't have any. So I decided to use some sparkly ones. I figure a dad can have a little sparkle too. And I added those kind of scattered around the card, and that is going to complete our Stacked Sentiment Father's Day card. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much to Erica for creating this amazing card that we were able to recreate in today's class. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Thanks for watching.